This is the scenery of a beautiful summer's day. The sun is shining brightly, trees are fully clothed in green, people play on the lawn, and the church tower in the background benevolently watches the scene. Everything is in perfect harmony. Trees don't grow anymore when they have reached their size. Adult human beings stop growing physically while they sustain their life for unlimited mental and spiritual growth. And even the man-made church tower has once stopped to grow after having reached its height. In the economy, however, growth has a completely different meaning. So let us first have a look at different kinds of growth. The green line shows a rapid growth in the beginning, which stabilizes after a while. Babies and children have pretty high growth rates, which, as time goes by, become slower, and at the age of around 20, man stops growing physically. The blue line with a steady growth rate looks simple, but in a limited environment it is not possible. Finite space does not allow steady influx. For instance, if people were continuously entering a restaurant, it would soon be crammed full. This is true for all limited spaces. The third line starts slowly and harmlessly, but then it accelerates and shoots up. It can only collapse in the end because of the natural law we have mentioned about the borders of space. This is even more true for accelerated growth. The borders of space will be reached faster. There is yet another aspect concerning organisms. An organism can only remain stable if all its parts grow in the proper proportion to the whole. If the crown of a tree grows faster than the rest, the trunk and roots would not be able to support it, and the tree would die. Considering these, let's summarize the rules of growth. In a confined space, there can be no limitless growth. For all sound and natural growth, there is an optimum upper limit. Any part of a healthy organism cannot grow faster than the whole. All developments which violate these natural laws are bound to collapse. These rules are not only valid for biological organisms in nature, but also for the economy, because it is a man-made organization, a superhuman organism, so to speak, that is embedded in the laws of nature. It has to take in account the finiteness of living space and resources. Yet there is a part in economic processes that breaks the proportion of the whole. The development of monetary assets is quite similar to the red growth curve in the first diagram. It is a growth by doubling in equal periods of time, which in the end shoots up and inevitably leads to collapse. What is the basic mechanism for the growth of monetary assets? For example, somebody has an amount of 10,000 euros that he doesn't need for the time being, the black bar at the bottom. If he keeps this sum in a box under his bed, the amount remains the same, no matter how long he keeps it there. If he deposits these 10,000 euros, dollars or any other currency, on the savings accounts of a bank at 3% interest, the amount will be 4 times as big after 50 years. If he manages to get 6% instead of 3, the effect does not simply double, but it becomes 4.5 times as big. And again, 3% more results in an amount which is 74 times bigger than the original investment. We can conclude from this that small changes in high interest rates have much more dramatic consequences than at low levels. An increase from 1 to 2% is almost negligible, but an increase from 9 to 10% has enormous effects in the development. A fictitious example might make it more conceivable what exponential growth means. Which job offer would you choose? The first offer proposes $1,000 per week. No bad pay, is it? The proposal of the second offer consists of 1 cent in the first week, 2 cents in the second, 4 cents in the third, 8 cents in the fourth week, and so on. Every week he receives the double amount of the previous week. Someone who makes his decision in favor of this offer might be called nuts. After 12 weeks, Mr. A has already earned $12,000, while Mr. B has only earned $41. And the 20th week, however, Mr. B has already earned $10,500, and just a week later he has attained Mr. A's level. After 26 weeks, that is half a year later, the first one has earned $26,000 and the second $671,000. If the experiment runs 39 weeks, that is 3/4 of a year, Mr. B would already have earned $5.5 billion. And after a whole year, he would have earned $45,000 billion, about 22 times the annual gross domestic product of Germany. Of course, this is an exaggerated example, so let's have a look at real figures now. The development of monetary assets and debts in comparison with Germany's economic output. Monetary assets and debts are identical figures, because monetary assets are defined by lent-out money. Therefore, they are equal with debts. In 2000, the national product, the green line, is 7 times as high as in 1950 in real inflation-adjusted figures. 7 times as much means we produce and consume 7 times more than in the 50s. And we throw away 7 times as much. Monetary assets, however, the red line in the graph, have climbed up to an amount 32 times as high. The exponential tendency of this curve becomes more evident the older the economy becomes, because more and more people are capable of putting their interest returns on top of their savings, which in the beginning is not so easy. Rising debts and assets also mean continuously increasing interest flows. Therefore, we have to try to ever increase our economic output in order to avoid the problem of monetary assets and debts running out of proportion with the economic performance. This is getting less possible in the course of time because interest revenues grow faster than the economic output. The German situation is neither unique nor is it an exception. It's the rule, at least in all advanced nations, like for instance here in the United States. Now, who are the owners of monetary assets and who are the debtors? Statistics distinguish 3 sectors: the state, enterprises, and private households. In this graph, the relation is expressed in % of the gross domestic product. The state is the biggest individual debtor in the economy, but it is not the only debtor. In the first decade after the war, the state managed to build up a considerable fortune on the right side while keeping the indebtedness on a rather low and even decreasing level. The state, which had about 1/3 of all assets in the beginning, has become poorer and poorer since 1960, and since the 70s, debts are continuously on the rise. Today, the state holds only about 6% of the total of assets. The second sector concerns enterprises. While enterprises had built up higher assets, the indebtedness developed much faster. If money was hoarded, it would disrupt the circulation and cause gaps in the supply and demand cycle. Therefore, monetary savings have to be fed back into the economy via loans. Otherwise, the economy would be jeopardized by a deflationary recession. However, due to the mathematical law of compound interest, monetary assets and debts must grow. And if the state refrains from making debts, then someone else has to shoulder the burden. The increase of indebtedness of the enterprise sector was particularly strong between 1991 and 2005. The largest increase in monetary assets on the other side had the private households, which now hold 2/3 of all assets. In principle, this would be appropriate because private households stand for those who work and have a rightful claim for the biggest share. By the way, the apparent sudden jump of private indebtedness since 1991 was not caused by a dramatic event in the economy, but is only due to a different method of processing statistical data.